Kia ora Tofano, hi family, it's me Silk again here with a second feedback vid. So this one's going to be a little disjointed, it may stop and start, but the primary audience here is really for the development team and those at Revolving Games who are involved in this. I'm just going to run through hopefully a fairly comprehensive list of quality of life improvements we could do with, some bugs to have a quick look at, and some sort of a few glitches here and there, and a few suggestions for some things that might improve the game for perhaps the lower spend free-to-play players. Briefly, I'm going to cover off things like we want a server clock, relocation tokens, some little look at the season chapters, a few glitches that have come up, some issues with ship skills. Won't be comprehensive, there'll just be a few of them. Travel speed across the map and how that compares to perhaps when you're recalling a ship and reinforcing and so on, and then just sort of a few general ideas. So once again, apologies for anything that seems a little bit disjointed. I'll be pausing and reloading different things into my studio here as we go along. I'm kind of doing this on the fly, and off we go. And the first thing I really want to look at is what we could really do within this game is is for there to be somewhere on this screen here, main screen, a clock in UTC or server time, and simply because when we get to things like PvP, it's fairly essential for most of us who are experienced and those who will gain experience going across the seasons to be able to time and land our marches all at the same time. If somebody's calling out for an attack on a particular point, the last minute, saying we hit at, for instance, 1700, everybody wants to immediately know what that is by looking at their screen, not by swiping down from the top to find out what the time is and then having to record that to the second. So if we could have a UTC clock, that would be great. The next thing I want to look at is the relocation tokens. We started out with 2 each. I think have I got any left at all? Miscellaneous. I've got 1 left. I've moved once. I'm about to move again, and it's likely to be somewhere in the, if we go up here, I've moved once to here from down here. I'm likely to move up again here. And I've got nowhere else to go, and we're supposed to get all the way here into the middle. So if we could have a means of obtaining more relocation tokens, that would be great. Perhaps we could trade them in for these little silver things up here, these credits. There's no mechanism for us to do that. We don't know what we can get with these credits. A little bit of info on that would be great, and being able to get those tokens would be awesome too. Now, you could perhaps put them in the store and put them here in the, I think, the daily discounts. Oh, I got a free one there. Let's see what we got. Oh, goody, a 5-minute boost. Yeah, we might do some work on that, eh? If we could have the relocation tokens in here, but have an option somewhere for the free-to-play players to be able to obtain them, and the low spenders. I'm here on 40 gold, so if you're throwing one in there at 200, I'm out of luck and pretty much out of the game and saying goodbye. So that's a big one. The next one I want to look at quickly while we're on the screen here is the season chapters. We've got these 2 here which we did not achieve. And that is simply because that's a very unrealistic expectation in this game. For this one here, 24,000 enemy patrols defeated server-wide. I talked about this in the Battle Pass feedback. There is no way that players are going to go out and hit those enemy patrols. The rewards are absolutely useless. They have to tile to get to them, so we need to have it so that we don't tile to get to them. They cost 20 stamina points, which is a really poor investment for your stamina. If they cost 10 stamina points, people could at least be using them to level up. Many of them are a higher level than half the players on the server can actually even hit. So a really good rethink. We need a wide range of patrols out there, more of them, going from minimum level of 5 up to the maximum level that is currently capped. At this time, what was it? It was 20, so it increased to 25 upon that finishing. Excuse me, there was no way on God's green earth half the players on the server could actually achieve that. So that's a myth. And then we didn't get to claim the objective reward even when the time was up, whereas in similar games you would still get that extra bung of whatever it was, 200 gold. It would go a long way to appeasing your player base if you actually provided that reward at the end, regardless of whether the target had been hit early within the time frame or not. And again, we got the same thing here: 45,000 influence, 150 or high level tiles. That might be great when your servers are full and fully engaged. At the moment, that's not the case, and it's rarely the case in a season 1 of this type of game. You'll only be achieving that perhaps in seasons 3 onwards, and I'll talk about seasons in another video and how we go about working our way into server merges, or whether or not we have a player lobby, which is what I think most people would prefer. So we've got these 2 events. We've missed out on 450 gold, and that's not through the players actually not being up to scratch. That's because these 2 chapters had very poor kind of thinking behind the expectations as to what was achievable there. So if we now go on, we're about to claim this. This will be straightforward. That's very reasonable. Going through to number 8, 35 regions. So an extra 10 regions, and I think we'll probably have 2 or 3 days to do that. That's fairly reasonable. Any one of the factions occupies the inner circle, if you like. That's probably doable. And at the end of the countdown, factions are ranked on controlling regions. Perfectly normal in this type of game. That's reasonable. Nova and Fire and Conquered. So yeah, we've got all those. That's fine. There's nothing further on that. And all we're getting is a few gold for each time. Perfectly normal. But if you could give that to the player base, regardless of whether or not this is hit early as a reward, that would be great. And I think what players would actually like to see is that perhaps you could go back and perhaps send out whatever it was, 200 plus 250, 450 gold to every player as a bit of a, yeah, we didn't quite get that right. That would be fantastic. So about the seasons, we don't have a lot of information here. We don't know what the end of season rewards will look like. So that's perhaps something that you could have a look at, maybe put some information up here. And we don't know how the player rewards at the end of the season are calculated. If you're the one that holds Nova at the end, I'm assuming you would probably get more end of season rewards than somebody who doesn't. So that's a little bit about the season chapters there, and I think it will go a long way again if you put some gold out to everyone in any server who's actually missed out on those 2 chapters, because that's beyond the player's control. That's just poor design, I'm afraid. So that's those ones. Next up, I'm going to have a quick look at a problem with the glitches with ships stuck on station. There's going to be a little pause here. You won't see the pause, but I'm just loading up some extra media. So this is just a recording of something that happened earlier when our guild was attacking Stratos planetary station. And what we had was a situation where I sent a unit, and we're just going to look at it. It's this one here is my Dark Fang, into the planetary cluster, and unfortunately it got stuck there, and it's a bug that we kind of all know about. Ships are getting stuck on planets, and then you've got to recall them. Now normally that's not too big an issue, but if you happen to have actually had your station or outpost that they were on a significant way away from that, and then just deployed your armies to one of these outposts, you've then going to have to recall this ship all the way back to the station. In my Dark Fang's case here, we had a 15-minute recall back to the outpost, and then another 15 minutes to come in again and do another hit. So that particular glitch with ships getting stuck when they're attacking a planetary station is something that really needs to be looked at, because it's a pain in the backside when you're attacking a station. But more importantly than that is when you're in PvP and there's a lot going on, if your ships are going to get stuck somewhere because you've got a whole bunch of people hitting a stack of guards somewhere and they're getting stuck on there, you're going to get some very irate players in PvP. So that's probably a priority to sort out before you start getting disenfranchised and disengaged players. I would prioritize that one. So I'll just play that through a bit, and we'll just have a look, and we'll see hopefully shortly where my Dark Fang is going. I'm all the way back here. That's a lot of lag that was happening there because of the number of armies hitting the base station, and to be quite frank, there's only about 30 armies there. Later in the game you're going to be looking at 200 or 300 on the screen at once. assuming it's decent PvP somewhere, and I don't know what that's going to do to that kind of lag with moving around. But you can just see that here's my outpost all the way back there, and my Dark Fang's going back there, so that was particularly tricky. This also happened with another 2 ships later on, so I've had to actually use recall speed boosts and some of my gold a little bit later on with some of the other ships just to recall them back and hit that station within the time frame we needed to take it down. Now, if you're a poor peon like me and you've only got 40 gold anyway, that's a chunk of money that you're not getting to spend on, for instance, a commissary chest or whatever. And again, that is completely beyond our control as a player. So please, if you could give that a little bit of loving, that I would really appreciate that one. Now, this next one's a bit of an oddball one, and it's simply based off the fact that when you've got something out in the field and you want to reinforce it, you have this kind of option where you could add more ships into it. So I initially started out with 1 set of strike craft within that ship, and I wanted to add an extra set of strike craft with it. So in order to do that, I basically added a new set of ships in, and I'm just going to let this run through, and we can see just there that it's going to take me 1 hour and 41 minutes to add these Cyclops into my ship out in the field. Now, everyone might be thinking that seems, reasonable. They're a slow ship and they're going to take a long time to get there, but I'll play this through shortly to see so we can see what the issue is. Before I do that, I just want to state that in most other games, the reinforcement times for ships out in the field are probably about a quarter, maybe less, of the time it would take to actually send the ship out there in the first place. So there's a lot of players who have come in from other games here kind of looking at this reinforcement and thinking, oh my word, this takes forever for my reinforcements to get there. Equally, the same with recalling a ship. One would expect, coming from other games, again, this is your game, it's entirely up to you, but the people coming in to play this are going to be expecting to be able to recall their ships a lot faster. So if I just let this play through a bit, while I do that, what I would like to be able to do in the game is to just change the composition of strikecraft around out in the field nice and easily, and have them all arrive at the same reinforcement rate, and even to take out the original unit that was in there. At the moment, we're kind of doing a workaround with it and coming up with this current thing. So what I've done here, this is yesterday, I think this happened. I've recorded what's happening. So we had 1 hour 41 minutes earlier to actually reinforce that ship in the field with a new set of strike craft. If I record the ship just there, and shortly you'll see me going on to speed that up, and I think this is where half my gems disappeared to yesterday, to be honest. I just decided to recall that back, I think, to its original outpost. Then I had to recall it back to the station. I think we tried to see if there was any difference here by adding those strike craft in at an actual outpost, and I'm about to find out that in fact that's not the case, and that was going to take forever. So we went to 1 hour 41 minutes still on that. So at this stage, let's just hop through there. I'm just going to forward this perhaps a little bit. We're recalling the ship there now. We're going to do a fast recall by clicking on the ship itself. Hour and 17 minutes, there we go, to get from that station back to home. So let's just finish that one off now. Any second now we're going to finish that off. 48 gold to go back. Okay, so we'll do that. Now I'm just going to pause a second. We'll find out how difficult it was to get back up there. What was that? An hour and 17 minutes. Going to put the same composition of ships on. That Cyclops is probably one of the slowest in the business. Just going to add a few others in, and then we're going to send it back to that outpost. Right, and I've just picked up that recording again, forwarded a bit, and what we can actually see now is that my Leviathan is only taking 44 minutes to get back to this station with its strike craft on board, so less than the 1 hour and 17 minutes it would have taken to send some strike craft there. So there's something not quite working out right there, I think, in terms of the movement speeds. between places, and that's going to need a bit of a look at. And as I mentioned earlier, I think ideally we want to be speeding up the recall rate, we want to be speeding up the reinforcement rate, and then you're going to get players having a better battle. If you then combine that issue with the fact that we don't have relocation tokens yet, and that we'll all be fighting from quite some way away, it's going to take weeks for one battle to work its way through, and that's just going to disengage players. So again, that's a fairly high priority to sort out, and I think probably an easy fix by just improving the recall and reinforcement rates. Okay, so the next things are just a few quick brief ones, some quality of life things that would be useful for us. In the guild communications channel, we can only get an announcement up in here if we've actually put a pin in somewhere in the map. And that means that it's really difficult for those of us who know what we're doing to actually put announcements out to new players to essentially teach them how to play the game and kind of give them a pathway forwards. In the lack of any decent tutorial in there, most people don't know what the object of the game is to start with, the fact that they're supposed to be taking Nova and fighting as a guild. A lot of people don't know really what the game is about, the fact you need to fight as a whole guild and get people from all around the faction into the same guild ideally and carry on. A lot just seem to think it's a farming game. There's obviously quite a few, we're getting sort of some perverse outcomes because there's quite a few guys who are here primarily to earn themselves some arcade tokens and are likely to be ditching it soon after the game, soon after TGE, once they've got their arcade tokens, or when all the slots that are available have gone in the arcade distribution. So there's some issues there, but what we really could do with is these announcements, just to bring people in, get people more involved. So far we've taken most of our stations with 5 or 6 players, and we're just starting to pick up more from the rest of the faction. But these whole announcements thing and not being able to put something out to our players is incredibly difficult. And someone came up with the bright idea at one point that we could announce where our Discord was so that we could all talk to each other more easily on our own Discord server. But of course we couldn't put that out as an announcement, so somewhere back there we had to actually put that sort of information out as a map pin, and that's holy madness, frankly. So if we could please let the officers actually post something in here without putting a map pin in, that would be great. That would be fantastic. Another quality of life improvement for us, certainly if your officer's running a guild and we bring our members list up, I really want to sort this by influence up here, and perhaps even be able to sort it by the online status. That would be great. At some point we'd want to see in here the kind of, if you like, the merit points for PvP and war ranking in there. That would be useful, and perhaps even a kind of, at some stage, some form of guild contribution ranking. I suspect you've probably got that in the pipeline already. We can see that we've got a kind of guild level somewhere around here. It's maybe just a sum of all our influences. I'm not 100% sure, but we've got this level 1 here, so I'm hoping that you've got something in the pipeline there. But yeah, if we could just have that quality of life on this member list, add something in here, a means of sorting this, that would be fantastic as well. Apart from that, another kind of quality of life for free to play and low spending players would be, maybe you could introduce a green tier ship. We've got our if you like, these are our rares, I think, and if you put something down like maybe a common type of ship, a green one if you like, that totally had a fixed level of level 5 perhaps, and just some basic attack stats that could be used as a scout, even call them a scout, give 2 to every player when they start the game. Because at the moment I'm kind of lucky. I've spent around $100 on this game. It's all I can afford, and I got really lucky with the ships that I've got. There are other guys who have spent that, who have actually still only got 3 or 4 ships. They might have some great officers, but they've got 3 or 4 ships. Now if you're needing to use 2 or 3 of those for a little bit of pathing to get to tiles and one for leveling up, you're at a real disadvantage. It's hard for you to take part in a group activity of pathing to a destination within the map if you really, your 3 ships are precious and you need them to be improving your influence levels to get anywhere near anyone else. And for the guys that have actually spent money on it and that are having to do that, that's even more soul destroying. And that means that they're not going to spend any more money. So again, if you want people to be involved, you kind of need to maybe give them a couple of these like low-level scout ships or more ships. But I'm just suggesting a quick and easy fix across the board. Creating more ships that are useful in PvP is difficult. You've got to kind of find the balances right in terms of their skills and so on. It does need them, but I think that's probably going to be a longer term thing unless you've got something for release already. Just having only 4 to perhaps 8, if you get lucky, ships across both sets of Dominion and Sovereign, you know, it's not a lot. There's not a lot of variety there. And the chances of actually picking them up in the commissary chest early on are still fairly minuscule. You've got, apart from completing one of the chapters, there's no main tutorial, there's no events of any description going on other than these challenges down the bottom, which frankly, when they're just giving at the very top end, you're getting some resources, much of which you've probably already got already. The first ones at the beginning, they were kind of useful a little bit because they were so easy. The last 1 or 2 probably took a little bit further to get to and give a bit more resource. But that's it. That's the only events you've got. Now, we're a week and a half in, and normally in a game like this, I would have expected to have gone through something similar to the challenges, a whole bunch of tutorials, and be it on maybe our 2nd or 3rd event for actually earning things. And all we've currently got is the commissary chest, and the odds in that aren't particularly great. The wish list doesn't seem to work well at all. I've got very little from my wish list despite the pulls that I've made, so perhaps have a look there. And I know it's something you've been thinking about. I've had some feedback from some of the guys in the social media team and others to say that that is something that's being looked at, so I'd just encourage that to happen definitely before the end of this season, and certainly before it gets launched as a part of a marketing campaign to the wider, I guess, Web 2 gaming guys that are into this sort of thing. Okay, next kind of quality of life improvement that might have a look at is the inventory. Now, I'm lucky because I'm poor and I don't have many of these, but I'd imagine the guys who have got stacks and stacks of these officers, even more so than this. I mean, I've got enough here, and this would drive me nuts if I was sitting here with 200 of these. I hope there's no capacity cap on the inventory, because some of the guys who are spending small fortunes are going to be running to that fairly quickly. We can't get rid of them, we can't trade them for anything, we can't even stack them. Please come up with a solution. What it would be lovely to do is to say if you've got, you know, I don't know, even if it's 20 or 30 of these green things, if you could then change them into a blue one, trade them for a blue one. I mean, even just being able to stack them as a first event would be great, because then, I mean, honestly, I go through this and it drives me nuts trying to find something, so heaven only knows what happens for the other guys. It's not like with these green ones I can enhance them into something else. So they're non-usable. I could assign them all to ships and I would still have them some left over clogging up this inventory. These guys here, not quite so bad. I can enhance them, and that's going to use up a stack there, so that's not quite so bad. But these green officers, please, can we do something else with them? Thank you. Next up, let's have a quick zip through some battle reports and have a look at them. And I've picked on the Corruptor one in particular. You're probably already aware of the issue with the Corruptor skill and its stun skill, but there are some other things I want to talk about around the reports. Let's go into the details. Okay, we have had an issue, certainly in the early testing. I don't know if it's still here or not, where if I look at the summary report, the lost units here seem to equal my units, the units destroyed here. Now, that units destroyed there should actually be the number of the opposite team that I've actually dealt damage to. So that should be probably reading 72 and 34. And that should be reading 9 and 2. So I'm not sure how that gets sorted out. You could argue the point that lost is the same as destroyed, but actually when we get to the combat logs and start totting things up, lost doesn't equal destroyed. Pointed this out in a previous feedback vid for the testing, so you may already be aware of it. If I just go into this logs here and let's just have a look through here. I only got as far as round 4. I don't know if I'll even be able to bring something up here with this Corruptor, but let's just have a quick look through. And we've actually managed to do all our damage here early on anyway, but there's a problem with the Corruptor where its actual skill is proccing, probably that's the confusion one. Got the wrong one there, sorry. We need to look at, where have we gone? Dark Fang and Sunder, was it? I can't actually remember now. No, it was the Corruptor. I've just done incredibly well on that one. Let's have a look at the first one, see if we can find the details in here. Combat logs. Yeah, look, we've gone 7 rounds on this. This is going to be great. So we'll go through here. And where are we? We've set off this shocker skill. How many times have we sent that off? We're in round 6, so we've actually got shocker going off 7 times for the opposition. We've got it going off 6 times for me. Now I'm fairly sure that the 10% chance to inflict stun each round isn't supposed to stack on top, and for there to be 7 10% chances by round 6 or 7, I'm sure that's a glitch, and that's a bit of a nightmare, because you're already doing damage received plus 12% against 2 enemy strike craft. That's making that Corruptor severely overpowered, and I'm fairly sure that's just some kind of a bug. It does bring us to a few other issues with reports and certain ships, which I'm going to have a quick look at in a sec, but I just need to bring up some Discord, so quick pause and soon the screen will break into something new. So what we're looking at here is another report, and I'm sorry I couldn't get hold of the report in game, or be able to pick it apart more easily. But we're looking at a Machina, and a big thanks to Nono for sending this through to me. This was really helpful to illustrate some issues. Now, we know that we've had issues with ships attacking themselves for whatever reason when they weren't under any kind of confusion, madness, or other status effect. And when nobody really quite knows why that happens. But we've got this particular issue here with the Machina skill Microwave Blast, it says here, and I think that's probably Microwave Blast. And what that skill does is it causes a certain amount of physical damage in the turn on which it hits, and then it causes some form of elemental damage, thermal or radiation, I can't remember which, at a smaller level for 1 turn, and it's 1 turn continuous. So that we would expect to see that elemental damage either in this round or the next, one or the other. What actually happens here is quite odd, to be honest. Bell Rung has been put out by Machina, and that causes confusion and leadership, I think, reductions. So that's kind of fine. But what we have here, the Machina attacks the archer with the Microwave Blast, and it deals its physical damage. And a bit later, we then, in this particular turn, we're then getting other things happening. And unfortunately, the elemental damage that is the Machina is supposed to have done from that Microwave Blast hasn't happened. But what we've got here is this line: the opponent's archer is confused from Microwave Blast. Well, it's not confused from Microwave Blast. It's maybe confused from Bell Rung, but not from Microwave Blast. Microwave Blast doesn't cause confusion. And then we've got causes 66 physical damage to archer. Well, that's actually thermal or radiation damage or something, unless that damage has come from somewhere else. and that just seems a little odd. There are some other things in this particular set of reports with units, the amount of destroyed units not going up or down properly when compared to the log, the summary logs. I'm just looking through here for round 2 to see if that microwave blast causes additional damage somewhere, but now it's attacking the knight. And I'm still looking for the elemental damage to come up, and it's just not here. There, it's all physical damages all the way through. It is perhaps happening at the lower rate, but it still doesn't seem to be coming up at all. So we would then look for the, what have we got? Microwave blast on the knight somewhere, and Machina attacks knight, and Machina launches the microwave blast again, and that elemental damage hasn't even come up. So it's coming up as confusion earlier, and it's leaving me confused, I'll be honest. It's a real kind of mess. And the other thing that I kind of noticed from these reports is that if I go right back to the beginning here, when things are launched here, medium plating is activated, archers granting incoming damage, that's great. When we have other skills that give a physical addition or reduction to stats, like a hard number, it would be really useful to see what the total of the stat that's affected is in here, because it's really hard for us as players and experienced players to actually work out what is going on in some of these reports. There's not quite the detail in there that we would need. And I'll just go back shortly into my own account and the game I'm playing at the moment, and we'll go and have a quick look at that. So just coming back in here, this is now back in my game screen, and what we've got here is that where are we? Cyclops is granted defense +1. I'd like to see over here what Cyclops defense is now actually at. Further down, do we have any more? No, but that's just one example. So for anything that adds on a +1 or a +2 or whatever, or even if it adds on a percentage to a particular stat, we'd actually like to see what that stat becomes there. And that's just going to help us to work out whether things are actually working as intended throughout the rest of the reports. The damage reductions and increases, not much we can do there. It's just particularly where we've got actual stats that are affected, that are on the ship or the strike craft to start with. It'd be really useful to see that those are actually working as intended. So that's probably just some of the things I'd like to see coming into the combat logs. Yeah, a little bit more detail. I'd like to see that actually the logs here match the summary here, and that the summary here is actually coming up correctly, because there's no point in having 2 columns here for exactly the same thing. So I'm fairly sure one of these means the units you've destroyed on the opposition, and vice versa. Other than that, yeah, I mean, things are kind of going okay. Just in recap, more events, sort out the travel speeds for reinforce and recall. It'd be nice to give players like 2 really low level kind of fixed stat ships to do their pathing with. We've looked at a couple of the skill issues with Corruptor and Machina. There's the glitch with the ships stacked on the stations. Season chapters need a bit of a look at, and maybe some payback rewards to players who have missed because they've missed out because things weren't really designed that well. But the two big ones and quick fixes that I think probably we need right now, having a server clock on there, because that's an easy fix, and getting some relocation tokens into the game, because otherwise it's going to grind to a halt really, really quickly. I just don't lose heart. I think you're doing a wonderful job. I love the fact that you guys actually listen to the feedback. That is wholly refreshing, having just spent many years trying to provide feedback to a Chinese gaming company who simply don't want to listen. So I love where we're going with this, the fact that you're responsive to the things we're doing. I think you're all doing a great job out there. So yeah, there's just some feedback, and I really basically I don't want to see you lose players. I want to see your game go really well, and I'm just kind of hoping that this is something useful for you. Thank you very much for watching.